Happy Thursday, Patriots. Welcome to the America First Patriot Hour. It's been a little while since we've been on, but I am excited and we are looking forward to having a great guest tonight, a friend of the show, somebody who, let me see here, I'm trying to get my, okay, that sounds better. I hope everybody can hear me. But tonight, Mandy Gunasekara is on, and Mandy was Trump's 45 EPA, and she's a friend of the show. She also wrote this book that we'll talk to her about, and I absolutely made sure I got this copy. It's, we're going after rhinos, so it's kind of an important thing. So without further ado, let me get Mandy in here, and let's get this thing started. Mandy, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, great to be with you.
What a beautiful, Christmassy, festive picture we have going on right there. That is outstanding. That's a nice Christmas tree. When do you put your Christmas tree up? Do you put it up right after Thanksgiving, or do you put it up any other time?
We put it up right after Thanksgiving. I actually thought about putting it up before Thanksgiving because we were hosting, but then I needed the space where I was going to put my Christmas tree for seating and an extended table. So anyway, there's the long story. We put it up on November 30th.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think we put ours up. My girlfriend's put up I think we have 3 trees here. There's one in there, and there's a little one in here, and then she put one in my office, and I'm like, okay, we're going a little too much festive here. So a lot's changed since I've talked with you last. Your book came out. So let's start right there. So I have my copy, Mandy.
I saw. That's awesome. I'll have to. I don't know. We'll have to connect in person so I can sign it for you.
Yes, that's what it's what I said today. I said, I've got to get Mandy to sign a personal copy for my book for the show, and just for me because I'm a fan. There's been a lot I've undertaken. There's a new project called the Rhino Removal Project, which I will touch on with you because who better than to understand what we're up against than somebody who understands what the deep state is trying to do to us. But let's go back for a second and let's talk about the victory that was Donald J. Trump. What's your thoughts on the election? I said he was going to win. I even called it. I said he would win 300 plus electoral votes and would win the popular vote. So what's your thoughts on the election?
I mean, what a wonderful day. I think everyone who's of sound mind and body collectively breathed a sigh of relief when President Trump took to the microphone. I stayed up that night early into the next morning. I believe it was 3 a.m. Eastern time. He went up there and accepted the presidency, and it was just a monumentous time where all the people were up on stage, and he gave a shout out to liquid gold and EVs, both things that fell under the umbrella of EPA. So I was attuned to that. But bigger than that, I think it restored optimism and hope for so many people that just want to be able to be proud, to be an American, to be able to talk about it, to wave their flags and not have to worry about criminals and thugs from Mexico coming in and ruining their lives, or an oppressive federal government steered by crazed socialists trying to shut down whatever their pursuit of happiness is. And so I think really it was a major shift. It was an important pivotal moment, but it was a major shift. And the Team Trump has not stopped since. They got the transition up and running. They are vetting people. He's making announcements, multiple announcements every day of really wonderful pros and patriots that are going to work hard to get the job done that President Trump promised to the American people.
It was like a dream because now that we're seeing all the stuff that's coming out about the Biden regime, let's make no mistake about it. This is the most evil installed regime ever. That's me saying it. So you look at the drones and you look at 500,000 missing kids. You look at the illegal migrants. You look at now Joe's trying to sell the steel right before Trump takes office so they can stop the border wall. It's like anything that's against America principles or against America, the Biden regime is for. I've never seen anything like it in my life. We have to agree that it's all been done on purpose. There was a purposeful reason to do everything from 2020 till today. And it just goes to show you what a power Donald Trump is. What a phenom. Because from a political standpoint, to go through everything that he went through and to win, and to win the way he did, it's the stuff that stories will be made of. It's the stuff that we'll be talking about. He is the Time Man of the Year, and it's so important what he's done. So can you believe that he was able, through us, to actually win? I was so terrified that they would find a way to steal it or cheat it. But it's just, to me, it's like one of those once-in-a-lifetime things, Mandy.
Yeah, and he was the right man that came to the forefront at the right moment. I think you're saying it exactly right. There was so much on the line. It wasn't just breaking down our country's borders, but it was also the growth and the proliferation of efforts to silence and censor mostly conservatives, but anyone who disagreed with the way that the Biden administration was ultimately going. I mean, the Daniel Penny trial that just came out, that was a symbol of the shifting tides. But let's go back just a few months ago. He was on trial, and the mainstream media and the left-wing prosecutors that were put in place by people like George Soros that do not want this country to survive or thrive, they were about to put him behind bars for standing up and protecting people on a New York subway in ways that everyone objectively agreed was the situation, but he found himself encapsulated by this terrible political bubble. And the reality is that terrible leftist political bubble exists all over the country, and it was growing. And with President Trump actually winning, and I agree. I mean, all the cards were stacked against him, stacked against his people. But that's the great thing about being an American, is we have this great American spirit that ultimately came through. And I think the biggest difference between Team Trump and Team Biden, or Team America First and Team I'm going to apologize for America's success, is the biggest difference is that the Team Trump movement still loves this country, whether they're in power or not. The Biden group, they only love this country if they're in power. And I think people saw that. They got tired of it. They did not like the direction the country was going. And regardless of how well and creative the left-wing media was trying to lie to the American people and say, everything's fine, inflation isn't real, you're actually safe. You don't need to listen to these made up stories about crime and statistics and cooking the books every which way. People, they shut that out. And at the end, the truth prevailed. And the right man to put this country back on the right path of getting back to our foundational principles and celebrating all that is good and great in this country, Donald Trump, he came to the forefront. And it's just the swell and collective momentum. It all happened at the exact right time.
And so much is falling on his shoulders right now. I mean, it's not just America. It's the world. The world's in chaos. Look at Syria. Look at Russia, Ukraine. Biden is still trying to give how much money? It's just constant amounts of money going to Ukraine. They're trying to create all these policies to tie Trump in during his presidency. They're trying to do all these things, which, as an American, I may not have always agreed with the other party, but there was give and take. There was stuff where I could be like, all right, I could see some partisanship there, or I could see something. These people are just pure treachery. They're just pure evil. They're pure bad. And so many Americans suffered from it. I mean, they're still trying to stop illegal immigration. You see states like Colorado and Illinois and all these other states that are saying, oh no, we're going to stop you, Trump. We're going to stop you. You're not going to come in and get our illegal immigrants. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Why would you be opposed? Why is it federal money so important? What do you think Trump's going to do? You think Trump's going to give you federal money? He's going to turn loose Tom Homan, and then Mandy, the deportation is going to start. What do you think about all that? Do you think he's going to be successful? And what a bulldog he's got in Tom Homan.
Yeah, Tom Homan, he's a total pro. He knows what he's doing. He grew up essentially working on immigration issues. He's seen the evolution of this problem. He worked for many different administrations, and he is the right person to implement and enforce the deportation policies. And it's interesting to see you do have some more Democrat leaning or Democrat governors that they see the problems that are manifesting themselves from a growth of illegal immigrants in their states. They see crime going up. They see a strain on resources that are supposed to be set aside for low income citizens. And so they are starting to see opportunities to work with Homan. Homan has the right personality. He's not going to take anything from anybody, and he is going to get the job done. And he's in a good position to do so. And I do think they're going to do what they've alluded to, where they start with, known criminals that on its face should have been deported a long time ago, but they have no business being here. But then known criminals, and reinstituting a lot of these border policies that Team Biden did away with day one. Things like remain in Mexico. Okay, you're seeking asylum, but you don't get to seek asylum and then get a free pass to come into our country. You're going to have to remain in Mexico, and that changes the whole dynamic of people willing to make those claims and wait for that judicial process to actually go through. So those things, building the wall, all of that, it's going to happen. It's going to take some time. And all I would urge your listeners to do, not just for the listeners, they know what's up because they listen to this show, but people they know that may not be as involved or pay as much attention. The left-wing media is going to go out of their way to try to create sob stories. They're going to find one heartbreaking family that gets broken up by mean Tom Homan's border policies, and they're going to try to make that the face of why deportation should not occur. But folks cannot fall prey to that. That is manipulation by a left-wing media that wants these people to stay because they know if they can get them to stay long enough, they turn into a reliable Democrat voting bloc, and those are their buddies that they want in power.
If we want to talk sob stories, we could talk about Lake and Riley and Jocelyn McGarry and Rachel Morin, and her mom was just up on the Hill the other day. It's so sad to me that a presidential administration like Biden would put illegal immigrants above young girls and young women and young people. I mean, you've seen a 7-year-old died from the car accident from the illegal. So we have like layers and layers of sob stories on what they've done to Americans and American families. So they're just going to have to deal with whatever Mr. Tom decides to put on them. You worked with Tom, right?
Not as directly. My husband did. My husband worked with him on he worked at Customs and Border Protection over at DHS, so he worked fairly closely with Tom.
I bet you he has some great stories, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And he also knows, and you see it on display. I mean, when he goes and testifies on Capitol Hill, he's so great. Yes, he has the personality. He's not going to back down, but he knows the law. He's been doing the job. He's so experienced, and he's not afraid to explain that to people who they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to immigration. They're just repeating political talking points, whether it's people from the squad or a lot of the Democrats that sit on the Oversight and Government Accountability Committee that he's been before a number of times. Anyway, he can throw it back in their face because he knows what he's talking about, and he's lived it for, I believe it's over 30 years.
So you brought up a great word in squad. Do you think progressive liberalism is dead? Do you think they finally understand that wokeism and DI and CRT and all this stupid stuff, the trans and all this gender mutilation. Do you think they finally have come to an understanding after America has pretty much provided a mandate victory for Trump? Do you think they understand?
No, not yet. And they're not a crew for self-reflection. They're too dumb to consider constructively what they could change to improve their outcome. But just look at their response. I mean, their general there's I think they do realize they're in the minority. I do think there's a lot of more centrist Americans that kind of bought into some of the messaging, and now they see, the mask has been pulled off, and they see the darkness that's actually under a lot of these policies, from transgenderism or open borders, or a lot of the policies that they're pushing. But the response from that deep seated progressive left is, well, the whole country's racist. Everyone's racist. These people aren't doing enough. And so I don't necessarily think there's always going to be a small group of crazy people. The good news is that more than the majority of Americans, or the majority of Americans, now see them for that small group of crazy people, and see through a facade that they had quite successfully built for a number of years, that they actually cared about people who struggle in life from a variety of different perspectives.
It's great buzzwords, a facade. I've said they've ran a psyop. So the state-run media has been a psychological operation. That was basically their campaign. And it turned into the campaign for Harris. And it's so funny to watch Jill and Joe next to Kamala. The hate is absolutely real. I mean, from her red pantsuit the day of the election to
Yes.
her talking about Joy yesterday, which was an absolute backhanded slap at Kamala. So it amazes me, all the stuff that we've witnessed and all the stuff that we've watched, the psyops and the illegal stuff. Like, what are these drones, Mandy? What in God's name is happening with these drones?
I'm not sure, and it's deeply upsetting. We we didn't know what the balloon was for a while that was floating across the country, and oh, come to find out, maybe it has something to do with China, not a
Mm-hmm.
friend of this country. We're not in the battlefield duking it out, but they're certainly not an ally. They're a frenemy at best, and so these drones, it is concerning. We need to know who's behind them, what type of information they're gathering, and I'm glad that people are quickly calling them out, but it is deeply upsetting.
It it's just like everything that could put our country or our citizens at risk. They're like, have at it. Let's go. Anything that's going to protect our citizens or decrease crime or decrease inflation or increase the economy, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I've never seen such an adversarial, pompous, corrupt, compromised organization. Like, I mean, they've got to be an organization. They're almost run like the mafia. I mean, the deep state and the MIC and the DOD and all these players are saying, here's what you're going to do. Now go do it. And they're like, yeah, Joe's old enough where he doesn't know what's happening anymore. Kamala was, wow. Like, I thought Trump would win the election because when I looked at her, I thought, from 1776, you mean to tell me America is going to be crushed and ended because of Kamala Harris? I couldn't wrap my head around that. I thought a Mandy Gunasekara or a Sarah Huckabee Sanders or even a Tulsi, we are going to have a female president. There's no doubt about it. But my God, at least make them believable. what's, your,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on Kamala?
Yeah, well, we have a deep bench of very successful,
Mm-hmm.
impressive, intelligent, experienced people that you would want leading this country. And I wouldn't even put Kamala on the B team. and how she found herself at the top of the Democrat ticket. Again, Democrats have the ability to fail up, and she epitomized that. Um, something else you said that made me think of this is back to the drones and what's going on. Everything this administration is doing, they're back at that point where they hate Trump and they hate the fact that they've lost so much. They're trying to destroy the country on the way out because they want him set up to fail, and they don't care who they harm in the process. And that was the party that put Kamala Harris at the helm. No wonder she represented all the worst that this movement potentially had to offer, and was so antithetical to American foundational principles, independence, liberty, that pursuit of happiness, things that make our country really, really great. And it's even worse than that. You have agencies that, bureaucrats, they think they are above this little old thing we call the democratic voting process in the country. They are taking it upon themselves to Trump proof the agencies to try and resist the policies that they and the changes that they know are going to begin on January 20th, 2025. Now, I don't think they'll be successful for a variety of reasons, but nonetheless, it shows you what Kamala represented. She did not represent even 1% of the great women that could potentially run for president and actually lead this country in a positive sense one day. And then the people who are behind her, it is largely this deep state, which is housed in Washington, D.C., that is working to counter what our country was designed to reflect, which is the voice of the American people that was just reflected through the outcome of the presidential election.
So let me throw a couple words towards you, and then you tell me what your thoughts are. Preemptive pardons.
Yeah, it's
Have you ever heard?
crazy.
Have you ever heard that before?
I haven't. Admittedly, I'm not an expert in the pardon realm, but I'm not the only one who was surprised by that. Being forgiven for crimes that you haven't even been committed of. I mean, it just goes to show you that there's definitely more there. The laptop just scratched the surface of deep-seated corruption that probably violated numerous laws. And anyway, that's why he got the preemptive pardon.
So today, I when I heard preemptive pardons, I was like, so why would you pardon somebody unless you already knew they were guilty? Which they already know, right? They know where all the bones are buried, and they know where all the bodies are. But today he does 39 more pardons, and the most ever, 1,499, what's the word? I'm going to forget the word. Basically pardoning that many other people, or refuting their, or ending their sentences. 1,500 people plus 39 pardons today, and the 1,499 was the most ever in the history. So here's a guy on the way out, and I'm going to guess that he's going to probably pardon the January 6th committee, because we're going to talk about some of the people that Trump is bringing in. But one of my favorites, and this is my favorite administrative pick. Well, besides the guy too that took your place, Lee Zeldin. I love Lee. I think Lee's a great guy.
He's great.
Every time I say, and I'll tell his name, and then people are like, "Why do you always say Mandy?" I'm like, "Well, because she was Trump's 45th EPA." And they're like, "Okay, all right." So I said, I try to marry the two together. But Kash Patel.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine the job he's going to do? And it's funny because Trump puts Kash up. Ray then resigns. A day after he resigns, you get all this stuff about 26 federal agents or undercover people being on January 6th. Mandy, sometimes you hear it and then you think to yourself, this can't be real, right? But can you tell us a little bit about what you think Kash is going to do for us and for the country?
I I hope he follows through. I really hope he follows through with what he alluded to in one of his interviews, where he said he was going to take the headquarters, the FBI headquarters, turn it into a museum at the deep state, and then send all the employees that work there out into the field to be real cops, that they actually, the job they actually signed up for. I think, first of all, I think he'll do if he doesn't do the whole thing, I think he'll definitely do a version of that. But he's so smart. He's very experienced. He has nothing to lose because he's been on the receiving end of a weaponized FBI. And I actually think that was one of the reasons. There's a lot of reasons why Kash Patel was appointed to this position, or nominated to this position by President Trump. But I think one of the most important reasons is that he was on the receiving end of a weaponized FBI that violated constitutional norms, violated his personal individual rights to try and go after a political opponent and a political movement and investigate, like real investigation by him and his former boss, Congressman Nunez, when they were in the House. They actually seriously dug into the corruption of the FBI and DOJ and the FISA court. I mean, they unmasked all of that. And so he's been on the investigating side, but then he's been on the receiving end of it. And so he has nothing to lose. And he's very courageous. And I think he's going to do an absolutely fantastic job. I think he's going to clean house in ways that nobody else would. And I think he's going to continue to ensure legitimate functions of the FBI, legitimate investigatory functions that are critical, to fighting crime, that those remain, but that the rest of it just goes by the wayside. And I think having Kash there, that is so important for depoliticizing FBI writ large.
I wonder how many resignations we're going to see from the FBI and CIA and all these three-letter agencies, DHS. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. How do you think his nominees are going to do? Are any of the rhinos going to be able to stop Hegseth or any of the people he chose?
I hope not. I mean, I think I've been very encouraged by, the only real feedback that they have is based off of these meetings that they have, the one-on-one. They've been up on Capitol Hill doing what they're supposed to do. I think even some of the rhinos and the people haven't always been with us. They understand that Trump did win with the popular vote, that this isn't just about the Republican Party. It's beyond that. And it is reflective of a broad-based, diverse constituency of Americans that want to see change. And so I think that even people like Susan Collins, Murkowski, some of these folks that historically have gotten in the way of, either conservative nominees or conservative ideals from getting across the finish line, I do think they will largely respect that. I was disappointed when Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination, but I do think that was one where it was getting too out of hand. It was, as he said, becoming a distraction, and it actually threatened to tank other nominees getting through the process. So I think that was an honorable and the right thing to do. I think for the most part, the people who are going to the Hill, talking to the senators, I feel very positive that they will get through at least this first round and this first batch of folks, because again, it's not just the Electoral College, it's the majority of the American people, and that's very powerful in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, so this is going to spin into a little bit of a different path here. I started a project called the Rhino Removal Project, and it's just blew up. And I sat back and I think to myself, could our Republicans have done anything during the 4-year onslaught of the Biden regime? Because Trump's going to control we're going to have the presidency. We're going to win this. We've won the Senate. We're going to control the House. But you watch and see if the Democrats don't find a way to stop Trump a little bit or to stop him. Mm-hmm. My question always has been, why couldn't the Republicans do that? Mandy, What stops them from fighting more or fighting harder for such a great cause, which is the American people? Why is that?
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with people who become, they call themselves institutionalists. But, and this is something I alluded to in my book. One of the most surprising
Mm-hmm.
things when I went in and was working in the Trump administration was how much energy I had to expend fighting among other people in the Trump administration. That first go round, there were a lot of rhinos that found themselves or whittled themselves into prominent positions, and that created all sorts of problems. This mentality is prevalent in the Senate. I do think that the Mitch McConnell no longer being the majority leader or the Senate leader, even the Senate minority leader, that's really big and a pivotal shift, because one of the key ways that the Republicans could have disrupted Biden's policies was holding up his nominees. But so many Republicans just rolled over when they had good opportunities to stop some of these terrible nominees from actually getting through. Republicans always play nice, or at least they do in the Senate, and their excuse is, it's about some esoteric view of governance. But what they were ultimately doing is they were rubber stamping people going into an administration that were slowly but surely whittling away what it means to be an American. And they never quite understood that. So I do think we have a great opportunity with Senator Thune, who's going to be at the helm in the Senate. He's got a great relationship with President Trump. Also, you have President Trump, who he's been through this song and dance before. He understands it is actually important to have the Senate and the House have strong enough relationships to bring them with you. Now, yes, there will always be problematic people, and we do have Republicans up there that lack courage. So I do think early action is going to be really important, because we've got this momentum, we've got this firewall of the American people that support President Trump and his people, but that will slowly but surely fall by the wayside as time goes on, and some of these more rhinos or less courageous Republicans or institutionalists that become a part of the blob or the swamp, they will find ways to slow down and get in the way or succumb to pressures from the left.
You know, Trump learned so much in the first term, and you probably know this better than anyone because of the Boltons and the Kellys and all the other people that decided to run roughshod against him. I think he understands this is his last 4 years. The MAGA movement is now tied to, and his legacy is tied to these next 4 years. And make no mistake about it, the Biden administration has left him with an absolute mess. All around the world, it's a mess. Mm-hmm. Understanding all that and knowing what he's learned, you can tell he's learned just by the picks and the people he's trying to put in place right now. What is your thoughts on RFK Jr. in Tulsa? Because here they are, they're coming from over here, make America healthy again, and he's trying to show unity, but he's also trying to show, there's bigger things in play right now for America, and I think he's trying to cover all his bases. So what are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I'm excited about them being a part of it. It shows how the tent of the America First movement has really expanded. I also think the integration, I call them the Silicon Valley tech bros, people like David Sachs, who's a longstanding conservative, but a lot of the people he represents, the Elon Musk of the world, people that he brought over to the Trump ticket, it just shows you how the America First movement isn't so much about Republican versus Democrat, but it really is about doing what is best for this country and doing what helps American citizens first, before trying to help out allies abroad and then those in need. I mean, that is the way of a pecking order, if you will, that it should be. But the last administration, they had it totally backwards for a variety of reasons. And so I think RFK and Tulsi, they're there to work on specific policy
Mm-hmm.
issues that they're both passionate about and knowledgeable about. And on the knowledgeable component, they also know a ton of people who have worked in or they've been disregarded or set aside or been on the receiving end of, the weaponization of HHS or the weaponization of the intelligence community. Again, they have nothing to lose because they had lost so much reputationally speaking from these institutions, and now they're going to go and they're going to clean house, they're going to set it right, and hopefully RFK Jr. I mean, I'm a green juice yoga soccer mom. I've been categorized that way, but I struggle with the state of our food. I think about these questions all the time, and I think RFK Jr. really tapped into a growing body of people who look around and say, we invest so much money in this country in trying to be healthy, trying to be fit,
Mm-hmm.
having health insurance, but you look around and the majority of people do not reflect it. There is something seriously wrong. And so RFK Jr. has tapped into that. I'm excited about him going in and shaking things up. And then Tulsi, again, she got dinged when she didn't go along with the warmongering of the military industrial complex. And again, that's an issue that isn't Republican versus Democrat. It is a body that violates we the people, and she has stood with we the people in so many different ways. So for those reasons, it's not your traditional pick, but I think it's important because President Trump has put them in for a specific purpose, and that purpose falls it fits very well into the
Mm.
America First vision.
I think the biggest barrier to MAGA and America First policies now, tell me if you think I'm wrong, is rhinos. And I truly believe they can be the ones that dethrone and derail or at least thwart the MAGA movement. So if you look at Trump right now and you look at what we've accomplished and what he's put in place, you look at J.D. Vance, you look at DeSantis, you look at Vivek, you look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you look at Tulsi, you look at all this bench strength like you just talked about. We have so many great people.
Yeah.
But we're led by all these people who are like a 42% heritage score or a 17% heritage score. And every time they vote like a Democrat. And it just absolutely pissed me off. It just irritated me to no end. So I'm sitting here trying to help Trump win. I started this thing as a disabled vet. I do these podcasts, and I want to meet great people like you because I want my listeners to get to understand there's great people out there. There's people that will talk to all of us. And it's important because messaging is everything today. But I firmly believe that rhinos are the biggest obstacle and the biggest barrier, and that's why I started the rhino removal project, because I want to take them out. I want to make them feel pressure. But you know what I found, Mandy, is educating voters on what a rhino is so important. And I just cannot get over, now that this thing is booming, I can't get over how many people don't understand what to look for or what a rhino is or how damaging they can be. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think people understand that. Liz Cheney is the face of that movement, and it's an absolute betrayal to the people who send someone to represent them before the federal government in Washington D.C. They'll say one thing to get elected, and then they quickly forget what they said or who they represent, and they go about a path to self-preservation, and those are the people that become a part of the business of the swamp. And so that's why you see a lot of rhinos or milquetoast Republicans. They get up there and they cast votes so that they don't cut the receipt of any DC based funds, campaign funds. A lot of this is tied to their fundraising mechanisms and kowtowing to large interest groups that would actually prefer to see things remain the status quo, where you have a small group of bureaucrats and institutions calling the shots, instead of a more transparent, open, and engaged American electorate, because those large institutions, have found ways to profit and benefit, and the Republican members of Congress they become reliant on that through the campaign process and other ways as well. Or perhaps they're looking at life after serving in whatever their role is, and they want to make sure that they have, a cushy landing spot at one of these large scale institutions, or defense industries are examples where this happens all the time. But anyway, they become a part of the business of Washington, D.C. They lose their vision of who they represent, and they lose the courage to do the right thing, because usually the right thing for the people that you represent outside the D.C. bubble is counter to what the D.C. bubble really wants.
So what do you think is the most important thing for Trump right now to do? Like, what is going to be the biggest thing? Is it so many things are broke? It's the economy, it's the border, it's inflation, it's World War III, it's trying to stop all the stuff that's taking place right now. What do you like? We know what the top 3-4 things are, but in your mind, just from you being where you've been before and you seeing what takes place behind the scenes and what happens, what is the pivotal thing that we should be looking for right out of the gate with Trump?
That is a really tough question. It's hard for me to pick between the economy or the border. I think I would say the border is important, because safety in a community it's the most important feeling. If you don't feel safe going home, you won't feel safe going to work. And if you can't go to work, you can't contribute to a thriving economy or support your family. There's so many things where safety and identity as an American, not as any of these other sub classification that the left wants to use to divide us all. But I think that that's really important. And I think establishing safety and security in this country, and getting back to the first identifier that people who live here talk about is being an American. I just think those go hand in hand, and that's so. Those, once we get those taken care of, the rest of it essentially falls into place.
So let's talk a little bit about you. How did everything go with the book? Tell me what's happening right now with Mandy and what's next for Mandy.
Well, thank you. The book's been going really, really well. I essentially did round one. I just got shifted to a new publicist, so I'm going to be doing. Book sales have been going great. I would say to any of your listeners, and you as well, after you read the book, if you could leave me a positive review. There's been a couple of left-wing groups that have tried to go on there and to bring it down. They bought the book, but they probably didn't read it. They just wanted to say some negative things. So anyway, I know that the Patriot bench is deep and they know what they're talking about. So I would encourage them to leave reviews, especially on Amazon. But it's been going really well. And again, I just have to say this has been such an amazing experience, because even, a year and a half ago, as I started this, I didn't know that I'd actually finish it. I didn't know the book that once finished, it would actually get published. And then once published, I didn't know that people would want to read it. And it's all gone the opposite way that I thought. There's little insight into ways that I doubt myself, but it's been really good, because the people I've met in the process are people who are reflective of this America First vision that is about to be instituted. Optimistic people who they want their vote and their independence, their vote to matter, and their independence and liberty to be respected. And a lot of people understand that the way to restore that is to really get rid of and fight back against the deep state. So it's just been invigorating and a really wonderful experience. And I have to say thank you for your support in all of this. It really makes a difference having an opportunity to engage on your platform, talk to you about all of these things, but also to talk about the book. It means so much, and it's also been very exciting to see.
Well, now that we've started this, now that we've started the rhino removal project, I'm going to make this book required reading for all my people, because people don't understand how deep the deep state goes. They don't understand how bad rhinos really are. And we're on a mission right now. And the mission is to go after, we're going to try to take out 2 incumbents for 2026, 2 senators. And this thing is really starting to fly in some unique ways, which I'm like, oh boy. But it's like when you wrote this book, sometimes you have to challenge yourself. And you think, okay, this is one of those sink or swim moments where I'm either going to make this happen or things aren't going to go the way I want to. And I just think your book is fantastic. I think you're a fantastic lady. And it gives me hope because I see people like you and I think, this is the bench strength. These are the types of people that Trump attracts. These are the type of people he finds. And these are the type of America First people that he's putting in place. And we need that right now more than ever because we want to secure MAGA for 30, 40 years. We don't want to see it go 4 and out and then be stuck with liberalism all over again. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. And I'm glad you said that because the truth is, President Trump's election and this administration is pivotal to shifting the course of this country. And I think he's going to make a ton of progress. But one of the things that I allude to in my book, and I continue to be the case, is not all of the major reforms are going to be instituted nor complete during a single administration. It's going to take many administrations. And the example I often reference is look at the Supreme Court. The liberals took over the Supreme Court, and it took decades for the conservatives, and really not the conservatives, I would say the originalists, if I'm being true to the legal context of the Supreme Court, but conservative originalists, it took decades for them to come up with a plan, fund that plan, inspire people to implement that plan, and then to stick with it up until really the Trump administration, when we very clearly took that court back. And now you have more of an originalist Supreme Court as originally envisioned by the founders that respects the rule of law and doesn't use that as a way to, as a form of activist judicial actions to make policy instead of just reading and applying the Constitution to the policies that come from either the Congress, the U.S. Congress, and the presidency. So anyway, I just say that it is going to take a long time. And one of the things I'm really excited about, I didn't answer this a second ago. There's a lot of things that I'm going to be working on as far as next steps. One of them is I live in Oxford, Mississippi. It's home of University of Mississippi. And we have this new center. It's called the Declaration of Independence Center. And this is an overt right of center institution at a public university. And it's led by a really amazing team of professors that want to ensure students have not just access to, but the ability to really understand and express themselves under conservative principles. And so they have a freedom studies. And I say all this because these are legacy opportunities and an organization I want to be involved with. I'm gonna help the Trump administration. There's a lot I'm doing in that space, in the DC space, but as far as longevity is continuing to plant that seed, even among college students that for so many years they've gone to college and they felt like they had to suppress their real beliefs or they didn't have an outlet. And we have this amazing institution here at the university that's literally a 7-minute drive from my home, and I'm going to become involved in that as well.
Man, that's so important because, you know, what he's going to do with the Department of Education, put it back down to the states. But then these universities are like 98, 99% liberal. Mm-hmm. And they force their narrative on these poor kids. And these kids, you know, go off to college, America First or Republican or conservative, and they come back with blue hair, 12 piercings and all this stuff. And it's just, it's sad and it's a shame. But I think you said it best. There's going to be a paradigm shift, and you're going to see it. Everything kind of go back the way it's supposed to go. You can't force stuff on the country, have it go as desperately and horribly as bad as it has the last 4 years, and think that that's going to become the norm. Americans aren't stupid. At some point, we all wake up and say, okay, you've hit us over the head enough times. Maybe it's time for us to stand up and make sure this stuff gets taken care of. So I'm very excited to hear about that. What is that? Is that the Rebels?
Yeah, hotty toddy.
Go Rebels. Yeah, that's Lane Kiffin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See, I know my football. Well,
I know, that's great. Yeah, we're excited. We didn't make the playoffs, but we do have a bowl game. And anyway, we're always excited. Anyone who's been a longtime Rebel fan is excited anytime we actually get a bowl to go to.
well, my team is Ohio State, and stupidly they got beat by Michigan again. Which, what are you going to do, right? It's you try to live vicarious. I played football in high school. Was going to play it in college. Got hurt, and I love football. So football, I'm a big guy. Football has always been kind of my thing. But oh well, what do they say? There's always next year. So, Mandy, thank you so much for being a part of this show and always coming on. Can I get you to do a shout out at some point down the line for the rhino removal project? Be on the lookout for that, because I think you're going to enjoy and you're going to like what you see. So I wish you very happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and the little ones and the husband. And I hope you guys have a nice, safe, wonderful, happy holidays.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you and your listeners. I really appreciate the opportunity, and Merry Christmas as well.
Merry Christmas, Mandy. Thank you so much. God bless, all right?
Thank you.
My friends, Mandy Gunasekara. What an absolutely incredible lady. And I mean this sincerely. She's one of the smartest, most personable ladies that I've met doing this. And it's a lot of fun for me because you get to meet some really interesting people, and you get to meet real people that when you look at them, you think to yourself, man, there's not a fake bone in this woman's body. She is just an incredible lady, what she's accomplished, what she's done. And that's why I say, they keep saying a woman president isn't going to happen. Well, if you put the right woman up there, absolutely it'll happen. And we have some great bench strength, and we have some great America First people. And I couldn't be more proud of getting to meet people like Mandy. She'll do a shout out, and she'll be there for the rhino removal project. And guys, we have a lot happening. There's a lot going on. So I just got a message from I don't want to call her my PA. I'm going to call her my partner. But she's been, Renee Finnegan, she's been helping me. She built the community out. She's doing stuff on the website. And like I said the other day, I feel like a one-armed paper hanger. It's just, things are so busy right now, but I wouldn't have them any other way. It's so much fun being a part of trying to change our country. Trying to do the things that we need to do to be successful, and to make sure that we cement MAGA for not just the next 2, 3, 4 years, but forever. And I know forever to me may be 10, 15, 20 years. But you know what? This grizzly old disabled vet, we are going to make some shit happen that people can't even understand. We're going to do stuff with the rhino removal project that the rhinos have no clue what's about to hit them. And you know what? I think they do now. I think people very much understand what's going to happen now. They see it. They've heard your voices. They've heard us. They know what's coming. And I couldn't be more proud. Well, my friends, it's been a while since we've been on. So the America First Patriot Hour will keep digging and going out there and trying to find more people. But you just heard from Mandy Gunasekara, her book, Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. If you're against rhinos and you're against draining the swamp and you want to understand it, you just listen to her talk. You understand how smart she is. Read the book. And like she asked, please put some comments on Amazon, because a lot of people want to tear down people like Mandy. And we should be building her up. That's the kind of people we need to focus on. So thank you all. It's 8:56. I'm going to get you all out of here before 9 o'clock. Remember, January 9th, Thomas Murphy running against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. We're going to also work to get some other people on. We got so much stuff happening behind the scenes. For those in the community of the rhino removal community, there's going to be a Spaces this Saturday at 7:30, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we've got going on and what's happening. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday, December 12th. I hope all of you have got your Christmas shopping done. I know everybody at home is going, Leo, we don't have our Christmas shopping done. It's okay. You got 13 days. Just be safe. Remember what the real reason for Christmas is. Don't get caught up in all the other stuff. God has been good to us. We won the election. We saved America. But that was just an election. Now, through the rhino removal project, we're going to take it to a whole different level. We are going to be the ones going after the rhinos. And we are going to make sure they understand they work for us and we don't work for them. So, God bless. Have a great night. Remember, stand tall, be accountable. Never let them take your hope. Make sure you stand strong in the face of tyranny and in the face against everything that's happening out there. And most of all, make sure you guys roar loud enough that they can hear you. Remember, Mandy Gunasekara, go out and get her book if you haven't read it. And make sure if you do read it, put some good comments for a fellow patriot who has carried a lot of water up the hill for President Trump. All right, my friends. Have a great rest of your evening, and God bless.